What are those things you feel when a certain danger is approaching you? Either danger or uncertainty. What are the things you feel when it's approaching you? What were the things you were feeling when you were watching that match between Nigeria and Morocco? What were you feeling when, you know, they were going to score? Let's put it this way, you are a supporter of the Nigerian team. What were you feeling when the team was down with 1-0 and went down again with 2-0? How did you feel? What were your feelings? What did you feel when a penalty kick was awarded to the Nigerian female team in that match? Those feelings are what we are going to discuss here. They are called anxiety. They are very high tension emotional feelings, and those are the things we are going to discuss in this video. So I will take it for granted that you have watched a football match before, a football match involving a team you loved so much. And how were you feeling when that team was about to score a goal? You remember the type of fear that filled you up when your darling team was to be scored a goal? What were you feeling when the Falcons were one goal down and eventually went into 2 goals down? So if you remember how you felt at that point, or at those times which I was trying to describe, you can begin to understand what I'm talking about. Anxiety can affect your body. To explain it better is to look at that match between the Nigerian female team Falcons and the Moroccan female national team that was played during the last African Women's Cup of Nations. When the Falcons were 2 goals down, it affected virtually every Nigerian football fan. People began to say all sorts of things. People began to think all sorts of things. Fear gripped them heavily. It was just the first half. They did not even enter the second half, and people were already beginning to think quite a lot. I will tell you a story about this football team. I have a neighbor. I used to have a neighbor who was a football fan of one of the European, of one of the Premier League. So this guy, unfortunately, had a history of high blood pressure. So he went to watch a match involving a team he was supporting. So that team eventually lost. When that team lost, the guy felt bad. So he left the viewing center and began to go home. On the way home, he fell down. Knowing our environment, nobody was, willing to immediately help. But when help came, and they took him to the hospital, and they were taking him to the hospital, the guy gave up the ghost on the road. It was obvious that his BP may have, risen to an unbearable level, and he collapsed. So that is how anxiety can work on anybody, and even go to the point of killing people. So you have to be very, very careful, especially when you are watching football matches, so that you don't become part of the statistics. Anxiety can even affect the way people think. If you have a wife who is pregnant and is about to deliver, the kind of stress you go through, the kind of anxiety that grips you, just because she wants to deliver. To the extent that if delivery is not forthcoming immediately, it becomes an issue for you. I have a very nasty experience. My wife was to give birth to our second child. She went to the hospital normally to deliver, and the doctors said that she cannot deliver in the normal way, that it has to be through a sea operation. My man, I was, I felt so bad. I began to think too many things. What am I going to say? How do I cope with issues like this? What if? What if? Many, many what ifs that I was thinking of. I was gripped in a lot of it. You won't understand what I'm saying unless you you have gone through it. It is only when you have gone through it that you understand what I'm trying to tell you. I cannot paint the exact picture for you, but just be. It's better imagined. I don't even want to tell the story anymore. But I thank God at the end of the day, she went through it, and the rest is now history. Have you come face to face with an armed robber who wants to rob you of your possession? Experts have always told us that when such things happen, you just take it easy and cooperate with the armed hoodlum. But I have since discovered that it is easier said than done because I've had a nasty experience. A guy pointed a gun at me, and the next thing I did was to just turn and run. Nothing came into my mind again. I was just running. It may be a wrong decision to take, but after that, I now remembered what the experts told us, that you don't have to. All you have to do is to obey the criminal and do what they say. But I want to tell you that it's easier said than done. On that day, I just turned and run. What I discovered is that whatever you do under the circumstance is as a result of what your mind tells you to do. You may have, you immediately forget every other thing about what the experts have told you. You just do whatever your mind told you. And what my mind told me at that particular moment was to turn and run, and that was what I did. Have you ever taken a professional exam before? If you have taken one before, you will discover that the cost of taking that exam is quite enormous, especially when you are doing a 9 to 5 job. Cost in terms of psychological strain, economic strain, and what have you. Because you have to read, and do your research into the night, and you won't have time to have enough sleep or rest because you are preparing for an examination. And you would have paid quite a lot of money. Money to attend lectures, money to pay lecturers, and then money for the exam itself. It takes quite a lot out of our resources. So having prepared, you've now written the exams. If you've prepared well, you would have, obviously, there may not be problem writing the exams. But the main anxiety comes when you are waiting for the results. And suddenly you are somewhere and you are told that the result has come out. The tension that grips you while going to check your result is unbearable. Like I said, you can only understand what I'm saying if you have been involved. But now, having talked about anxiety and its problems, how do we overcome it? It's very important that we understand how to overcome anxiety. One way I have come to learn of how to overcome anxiety is to make provision for losses, especially when you have a football match, when your darling team is playing. You have to make provision for the fact that, look, this is a competition involving two different people. You cannot have the two of them win the match. One of them will win while the other will lose out. That is what you have to have at the back of your mind. Before now, I did not have this at the back of my mind. My own is that my darling team must win. So if eventually they lose in any particular match, I become sick. For the next 2 or 3 days, I will be sick. I will not be able to come out of my room because of the tension I feel about their losing. So somewhere along the line, somebody advised that, look, you have to make provisions for losses. You have to make provision for the fact that, look, these guys, could win or lose. You cannot have two people cannot win a match. It's either you win or you lose. At best, it becomes a draw. But even if it's a draw, somebody must win at the end of the day. So it is better to make provision for the fact that one person will win, another will lose. If you make such provisions, there will be no anxiety. So I began to make provisions like that. So what I do each time I watch any match is that, look, if these people win, fine. If they lose, fine. We'll go back and prepare better. You don't have to kill yourself because a match was lost. Even companies themselves have what they call provisions for losses. They have a profit and loss account. If they make profit, they declare it. If they make losses, it is declared. It's part of business. So it is in sports. Somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Both of us cannot win if we're in a competition. That's the way it is. So since I began to make provisions like that, I've come out unscathed anytime I'm watching any match. I don't fall sick again because I have it at the back of my mind that one person will lose and the other person will win. The other way you have to overcome anxiety is that you should not allow your emotions to ride you. If you allow your emotions to ride you, it could be catastrophic. What am I trying to say? If, for instance, somebody you love so much walks out on you, you would have broken your heart. And if somebody breaks your heart, it could be something terrible. If you are not careful, you could go into depression, and depression leads to a lot of things. So the best thing to do under that circumstance is that you should not allow your emotions to ride you. Anxiety is that you change your way of thinking. Experts will tell you that, look, the mind cannot take two things at the same time. If you have a problem, one of the best ways of solving it is to take it away from your mind. Don't think about it. The mind, like they said, cannot think of two things at the same time. Excuse me. So if you take your mind away from what is happening now, you will be able to win. Because the mind concentrates on what you are thinking of right now. So if you have this ability to control your mind, in fact, it is something you have to learn. You learn how to control your mind. Once you learn how to control your mind, you can easily defeat anxiety. So above all, anxiety is a very dangerous state of mind. You have to learn how to take care of it. If you don't learn how to control it, just as I've told you before in a number of instances, if you don't learn how to control it, you could be another negative statistics. So please, it is important that we learn how to take care of these anxious moments and don't let anxiety ride you. Thank you very much for listening.